Insects and wildlife are the heroes of a banana farm in North Queensland. They've replaced artificial fertiliser and a host of chemicals. The plantation owners are producing those distinctive red wax tip bananas you can find in the shops. And a scientist who has studied their methods says by turning back the clock, they're actually ahead of their time. Sciacca's a banana grower, but he's been labelled many other things, like renegade, eccentric, even a phony. He's grown bananas in Innisfail in North Queensland for 30 years. But 15 years ago, he became an industry outsider when he radically changed his farming system. He turned back the clock and chose to farm the way people did 60 years ago.
You were still putting out chemical on the soil and on the plant that was quite severe, had a severe impact upon the environment, but it wasn't working. That was the alarm bells.
You end up being like an addict. You're depending on these things to grow your crop, and you're just caught up in that circle. It was just about producing bigger and more and bigger and more, and I just had enough of it.
To get off what he called a chemical and fertiliser treadmill, Frank eliminated insecticides, miticides, nematicides and any fertiliser which killed organisms in the soil. He cut herbicide use by 25% and applied fungicides sparingly. Even his wife Diane thought he'd lost the plot.
You know, he started doing trials on our farm for about 2 years. I'll be honest, I thought he was crazy. And then one day he said, I think I can do it commercially. It was probably about 5 years in. I just didn't get it.
Frank believes the conventional chemical regime he'd been using had disrupted the farm's ecosystem, causing a decline in biodiversity. And he reasoned organic pest control methods would do the same.
When you start killing anything that's living, invertebrate, insects, whatever it may be, you've then broken an ecosystem cycle.
Frank and Diane decided to repair and share their land with every living organism on the farm.
It was trying to find the way forward with something that could be commercial and something that could achieve real eco outcomes.
After years of killing insects, Frank now sees them as staff. Job titles include predator, recycler, pollinator, soil creator, scavenger, decomposer and food source.
These guys are awesome. They do a fantastic job, and without them, I wouldn't be able to grow eco bananas, that's for sure.
In this cupboard are several thousand insect specimens found on the Sciacca's farm. Some, including 4 types of wasp, which are handy predators, returned after Frank cut back on chemicals.
They play a part in the whole balance of the system, There isn't, any one of these isn't doing the total job. It's a combination of all these things that makes the whole ecosystem work. Oh, it actually brings a smile to your face. You look at it and you say, well, nature's living in my farm.
He's planted hundreds of native trees around the farm to provide food and refuge for birds and native animals. Frank's committed to protecting the Great Barrier Reef and has a network of drains, dams and grassed areas to trap and clean up runoff before it leaves the farm. The early years after they made the switch were shockers. Yields fell, and as insect populations recovered, pest outbreaks increased.
I suppose you could drive past our farm then in them days and have a look and say, oh my God, this bloke's, what is he growing? It's all dying. And
so we were laughed at.
We were laughed at. And
we were the industry joke.
Yeah.
By the 3rd year, the farm's ecosystem started to right itself. Yields improved, biodiversity increased, and there were fewer pest outbreaks. An increase in wasps and flies saw the damaging scab moth virtually disappear. The Australian insect farm based in Innisfail monitored insect populations for 5 years. When it started surveying, there were just 2 species of ants. When they finished, there were 5.
They actually attack those pests or grubs or anything and take it back to their nests. So we're finding that ants are something beneficial that you need to have in our cropping system anyway.
The Sciaccas call what they do eco-organics.
What it's about is about using finite amounts of synthetic product to a level where it does not impact upon the ecosystem. It doesn't impact upon the ecology. And once we started getting life back into the soil again, which took a significant amount of time, probably
took years.
4 to 6 years before we could see any real change,
yes,
then you could start using some more natural products.
Frank pondered for months how to differentiate their eco-bananas. And after a messy experiment in the kitchen with painted bananas, he settled on dipping them into biodegradable wax. Now common in supermarkets, it wasn't easy convincing retailers to stock them. Diane says some in the industry didn't appreciate their rejection of chemicals.
What was it like being the industry joke, Diane?
That didn't worry me so much. What worried me more was that filtered into the market system. So it really slowed our growth in the early days.
In response, they adopted ISO 14001, an international standard for environmental management.
I had to develop a framework around that system that could be third-party certified and could also meet ACCC requirements, because when you make claims about something, you have to have the evidence to prove it.
Luckily for the Sciaccas, a few kilometres up the road is the Queensland Department of Agriculture and Fisheries. Dr Tony Patterson's been studying their soil since 2012. He says carbon levels and fungal activity are up, and microbes and nematodes in the soil are working for the bananas, not against them.
It's a slower biologically active soil, but the diversity is great.
There's little available nitrogen in the Sciaccas soil. That's actually good, as organisms have to cooperate to get the nitrogen they need.
Well, once they start working together, you're getting different enzymes to produce in competition, so you're getting antibiotics being produced. So you start to get this competition, so that actually keeps the pathogens down, the disease-causing organisms in the soil.
This knowledge could help Australia's $600 million banana industry deal with Panama disease. As Dr Patterson says, lower nitrogen levels make the soil environment less welcoming for the virulent fungus. The devastating disease can't be controlled with fungicides, and the infected spores can survive in the soil for decades.
This is some beneficial fungus that has grown.
Frank's soil is monitored constantly, as are the insects. Entomologist Anna Sosnin counts them fortnightly, and her numbers point to a farm rich in good bugs.
Some of the good insects are things like spiders and a lot of the wasps. There's hoverflies, lacewings, lady beetles, of course. They all take care of the bad bugs when they're in the bananas.
Banana plantations are usually neat, with grass slashed and weeds sprayed out. Not here.
There's plenty of places for them to live and to hide in the weeds. There's flowers for the older bugs to feed on, and then their young are usually the predators that take care of the pests.
And do you think some farmers drive past and go, geez, that's Frank's a lazy bugger?
I think they've got to know me now, a lot of them. At the end of the day, it's what we believe in, and it works for us. We're saving hundreds of thousands of dollars on our farm by having that messy farm. So, yeah, it's looking at it, a lot different to how traditional farming was once upon a time.
Are the yields back to what they were under the conventional system?
No, Pip, no. The conventional system was something where we were harvesting a lot more of our natural capital to create that yield. Today, our farming system is about not harvesting our natural capital, but increasing our natural capital in the soil.
The Sciaccas are audited annually, as are the 5 banana growers they enlisted to grow for them as demand grew. They produce nearly 5,000 tonnes a year, with 2% destined for a growing market in Japan and Hong Kong.
We've realised that there are markets out there that are willing to pay the price for products that are unique, that are different.
Because it got there on Sunday night, so...
The growers meet once a month. Some had tried biodynamics or organics before they met Frank.
Some of the things he comes up with, you sort of roll your eyes and think, gee, you know, what's he talking about? But it all, yeah, he's way ahead of us. Yeah. It's not just a matter of just putting on fertiliser and walking away and leaving it grow. You've got to be more in tune with what's happening on your farm. Like we haven't sprayed a lot of things for years, you know, for miticides and things like that. I wouldn't know what to spray with now, so there's a lot more activity in the plant, in your plantation.
And do you feel more comfortable that your husband isn't handling as many chemicals?
Oh, definitely. Even the employees, they're happy knowing that they're not dealing with a lot of chemicals.
The Sciaccas haven't solved all their ecosystem puzzles. Rust thrips top their list. Scientist Amy Maguire is weaponising a strain of soil fungi to take out thrips without harming beneficial predators.
And should growers be excited about the potential that you're discovering
Oh, 100%.
to change their industry?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like the ability to go onto your own farm, you know, and rear out these invisible organisms to the naked eye and then grow them in a laboratory and then be able to apply it within its derived system. I think it's amazing. There's billions of unidentified species. It's a whole universe of life that we know so little about. And we're only really just starting to understand what kind of role these little microbes are playing within our system.
If Amy's pesticide replacement work is successful and a non-toxic fungi spray or granule is developed, the whole industry could benefit from lower pesticide use.
So important that this research is being done, and you know, you can see it starting to take off. More research is coming out, and I think people are really starting to realise the benefits of actually just looking at what nature's already provided us.
Okay, so then we go back, paper this side, and then we're going to go back.
Dr. Tony Patterson says Frank Sciacca is ahead of his time and that his approach isn't just applicable to bananas.
What we're seeing with people like Frank and Diane is that they're ahead of us and they're demanding these results, and then we have to then start to validate their systems. And it's a great challenge to know that there's innovators out there that we have to bring the science up to answer their questions and up to their level.
It's taken nature thousands of years, right, to create that big web. And it made me realise that it's so important for us to be able to grow our crops, to have this ecosystem and all this natural biodiversity there.